The Majalis, the sessions that gather and remember Imam Hussein alayhi salam, are one of the greatest phenomenons that we experience every year, where we see millions of people all over the world, in every city, in every country, gathering, remembering Imam al-Hussein, talking about the virtues of Imam al-Hussein, and shedding tears for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Where did these majalis begin? What is the root of these majalis? And who was the first who held a majlis for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam? How are all these millions of people inspired to hold sessions for Imam al-Hussein, eulogizing Imam al-Hussein over 1,000 years after his martyrdom? When a relative, when a family member passes away, people remember that relative 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Then after that, people eventually forget. But with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, no one forgets his tragedy. Every year, people cry as if Imam al-Hussein was killed on that year. Every year, people remember Imam al-Hussein and talk about the virtues of Imam al-Hussein. My dear brothers and sisters, these majalis are inspired by the words of Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Rasulullah was the first to cry for Imam al-Hussein. Amir al-Mu'mineen cried for Imam al-Hussein. Fatima al-Zahra cried for Imam al-Hussein. And this is something that is documented by all Muslims, Sunnis and Shias. Salama, she mentions how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi received some of the soil of Karbala and he began to cry for Imam al-Hussein. Other companions of Rasulullah, they describe how Rasulullah would hold Imam al-Hussein and cry for him and remember when he remembers his martyrdom. And after the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein, the majalis began, the eulogy sessions where the Ahlul Bayt and members of the Ahlul Bayt, they would cry and they would encourage their companions to cry for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. We believe that the first majlis that was held for Imam al-Hussein after his martyrdom was a majlis held by his very own sister, Sayeda Zainab alayhi salam. When after Imam al-Hussein was killed on the 10th of Muharram, Sayeda Zainab alayhi salam, she took on the responsibility and she walked all the way to the grave of Abu Abdullah in the middle of the battlefield. She reaches the mutilated body of her brother, the beheaded, mutilated body of Imam al-Hussein. And she drops herself on the grave of, on the body of Abu Abdullah, and she begins to say, Wa Jaddah, Wa Muhammadah, صلت عليك مليك السماء هذا حسينك بالعرى مقطع الأعضاء وبناتك سبايا وإلى الله المشتكى وإلى محمد المصطفى وإلى علي المرتضى. She cries over the body of Imam al-Hussein, and all of those who were watching her, they could not help but cry for the tragedy that they were witnessing in front of them. Even the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, when they saw Sayeda Zainab crying over the mutilated corpse of Imam al-Hussein, they also began to cry. This was one majlis. Another majlis that was held was when the family of Imam al-Hussein were taken to Kufa. The family were paraded to Kufa, and there the people of Kufa, they saw the family of Imam al-Hussein being brought into Kufa, and everyone in the city, they came out and they began to cry. And Sayeda Zainab and Kulthum delivered a sermon. Sayeda Zainab tells them, Atabkun? Now you're crying? Now you're crying for my father? Now you're crying for my brother? And then a majlis was held in every city that the family of Imam al-Hussein were placed in. Eventually a majlis was held in Sham, in the court of Yazid, where Imam Zain al-Abidin and Sayeda Zainab, they told people what happened to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Zain al-Abidin, he would recite the eulogy for Imam al-Hussein in Masjid al-Umawi, standing in front of Yazid and in front of hundreds of people, in his sermon, he tells them, I am the son of Rasulullah, I am the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, I am the son of Fatima al-Zahra. And then he says, أَنَا ابْنُ الْمَذْبُوحِ بِكَرْبَلَا. I am the son of the one who was butchered in Karbala. And everyone began to cry, so that Yazid ordered the mu'adhin to recite the adhan in order to stop the words of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. Then the Majalis continued. When the family of Imam Hussein arrived in Medina, there were several Majalis. al-Baneen held a Majlis. Imam Zain al-Abidin, Sayeda Zainab, they all held Majalis, and the Imams after. The Imams after, all of them. Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Sadiq. Imam al-Sadiq, he would invite the poets and he would tell them, Anshidni shi'ran fi jaddi al-Hussein. I want you to recite a poem talking about the shahada of Imam al-Hussein. One of those poets by the name of Abu Harun al-Makfuf. Abu Harun al-Makfuf, he goes to visit Imam al-Sadiq. Imam al-Sadiq tells him, Oh Abu Harun, I want you to recite me a poem talking about Imam al-Hussein. So Abu Harun al-Makfuf, he begins to recite, Umrur ala jadath al-Hussein, waqul li'a'dhumihi al-zakiyah. He begins to recite, reminding the Imam al-Sadiq of the mutilated body of Imam al-Hussein. The Imam al-Sadiq begins to cry. The women in the house, they begin to cry. And then the Imam alayhi salam, he tells him, Oh Abu Harun, recite more. Recite more. The women in the house, they want to hear more recitation. So Abu Harun al-Makfuf, he begins to speak to the mother of Imam al-Sadiq. Ya farwatu qumi wandubi mawlaki wa ala al-Hussein fas'adi bibukaki. Oh Farwa, cry for your master and remember the tragedies of Imam al-Hussein. And then Imam al-Sadiq, he tells him, Ya Aba Harun, man anshada shi'ran fi jaddi al-Hussein. Whoever recites a poem in praise of Imam al-Hussein, falahu al-Jannah. This person will go to paradise. Another story is with Da'bil ibn Ali al-Khuza'i when he visits Imam al-Ridha. And Imam al-Ridha also asks him to recite a poem in praise of Imam al-Hussein and remind him of the tragedies of Imam al-Hussein. So my dear brothers and sisters, these majalis that we gather and commemorate the Ahl Bayt, they didn't come out of nowhere. These majalis, they have an origin, and that was with Rasulullah, with Amir al-Mu'mineen, with Fatima al-Zahra. And then after Sayeda Zainab, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Sadiq, all of the Imams, and even Imam al-Mahdi al-Muntadhar, he also holds a majlis for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He cries, he says, Wa jaddah, oh my grandfather, فَلَئِنْ أَخَّرَتْنِي الدُّهُورِ وَعَاقَنِي عَنْ نَصْرِكَ الْمَقْدُورِ وَلَمْ أَكُنْ لِمَنْ حَارَبَكَ مُحَارِبًا وَلِمَنْ نَصَبَ لَكَ الْعِدَى مُنَاصِبًا فلأندبنك صباحا ومساء ولأبكين عليك بدل الدموع دما. He says, oh my grandfather, if I was not able to help you, if I was not able to physically defend you, then I shall cry for you day and night. My dear brothers and sisters, let us continue the majalis and the weeping for Imam al-Hussein, for the barakah, the blessings that we have in our lives, they come from the majalis of Imam al-Hussein. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala